Hello, it's me, God. God. It's me, God. Oh, yeah, you didn't expect me to be a woman, did you? Look, before you tune in, I just want to let you know that this show is just two pals having a laugh. It's not a serious study of the stories from the Bible. It's not meant to be accurate or particularly religious. It's meant to be a good time, finding the fun in my stories. And for anyone who's about to say that this goes against God, it doesn't. I approve. I am literally God. Yo, I'm up here laughing at these two silly billies. Seriously, check out episode 6. That one is my favorite. Anyway, listen. Spread the good word about this podcast and enjoy. I gotta go learn this new TikTok dance.
Hello and welcome to Let's Get Biblical. I'm Jonathan Giles, and thank you for tuning into this very silly little adventure that I get to do with one of my favorite people in the whole world. You know her as the voice of God.
Hello, I'm God. Okay, just kidding. It's me, Aisha Alpha. Jonathan's favorite person in the whole world. Absolute favorite.
Did I say one of my favorites?
One of.
I didn't want to exclude anybody.
You know what? After your mama, it's me.
I think before we dive fully into this whatever this is going to be today, I feel like it might make sense if we give a little bit of context to what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yes. So I think a lot of, when I've been telling people, I'm doing this podcast with Jonathan called Let's Get Biblical, they're like, oh, are you guys religious? And I was like, well, this is kind of the point. Jonathan, you grew up very religious.
Right. Yes, I did. I'm a church kid, Sunday school. That was during the morning, and then we do Bible study in the evenings.
Bang.
We
Couldn't
go
get
to
enough of that book.
We go to choir practice on Tuesdays. We go to prayer. We go to prayer, whatever, on Wednesdays. I was in church a lot. I played in the church basketball league.
Look at you, just dunking on Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
You grew up like that, and I grew up with absolutely no religion whatsoever. Neither of my parents were religious, and I think they were actively like rebelling against having been religious when they were kids. So we grew up with an absolute void of religion. And I'm still to this day, sometimes when people are religious, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot people are religious. Like it kind of just was not in my world growing up. So you would tell me, or like reference things or stories and like Bible and church and things. And I was always like, what? Tell me more. What is this crazy thing you're talking about?
I remember specifically one time you were talking about one of your kids, and I think I said, oh, that's like Jonah and the whale.
And I was like, who is this Jonah? What, were you whale watching? Who's Jonah?
What's about Moby Dick? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think I did say Moby Dick because I was like, is that the Moby Dick story? Also haven't read Moby Dick. How could you?
You were like, is that like the story of Nebuchadnezzar? And I don't even know. Who's the main guy that was chasing Moby Dick?
I don't know. I haven't read it. Isn't Homer? Is that part of it? No.
We're going to say it was Homer. Homer was from like the Greek, the Iliad.
Odyssey.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're both lit buffs. We love literature.
That's what's funny because I do this with like a lot of people who I get into conversations with, and Bible stories is a point of reference for me.
Yes.
Whether it's like the morality of a story or even just sort of like what's happening. And so I was thinking, I was like, oh, if it wasn't the Bible for me, what would it be? Like, it would like, is there a place where I'd be like, oh, that's like Harry Potter?
Yeah. What if Harry Potter was your Bible? I feel like it's like, having learned some of these stories from you, it's an adventure book. I'll tell you that right now, the Bible. It's a real adventure. It's like not PG. It's like R-rated, it's X-rated, it's crazy. So like, it's kind of, you sent me that meme or the little video the other day of someone being like, the Bible is boring. Really? Because it's got giants and people. Like, it's like, It's insane.
People have superpowers.
Super hair. Yes. It's like, it's really, so this podcast came about from us like always laughing about this and talking about these stories, and then it's sort of feeling like this could be fun for people who maybe grew up religious and maybe aren't as religious now, or who didn't grow up religious, because it's just like a fun little silly podcast that we want to reiterate is not a religious podcast.
No, if you are here to find the Lord, he's here, but he's chilling. He's not working right now.
She is not.
They, my bad. They,
okay.
them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't excluded pronouns on this show.
No, God is everywhere. God is all of us. So how could God be just a man or a woman?
You're right. Yeah. So. Why do we want to limit God? We don't.
You
We're,
can't.
yeah, can't limit
Limitless,
God.
just like the movie. Okay, so what's today's
What a random connection. I love it. Yes, I love it.
what's today's story gonna be?
Okay, I feel like it made the most sense to start our first episode with one of the stories from the beginning. Not the only one, but one of them. And I wanted to start off with the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Such a sexy story, baby.
It is.
Adam and Eve.
Yeah. It's kind of perfect today. The day we're recording this is Valentine's Day, so
That's right.
why
Happy
not tell a
Valentine's
story
Day.
about a man and a woman in a garden?
And a snake.
Oh, so you know this story
I know a
already.
little bit. So give me the gist. Give me the story as you recall it.
Okay, so the story that precedes this, and maybe we'll get into it one day, is about the creation of Earth. Like God created the Earth and all the stuff. So we won't get into the details of all that. But when God finished creating the Earth and looking at it and being really proud of himself, after a while, God realized that he was a little lonely. And he was like, I kind of need a bud. I need someone I can hang out with and talk to.
It's lonely at the top. You know what I mean? Like that's what they say.
Yeah. God needed what is that called? A person underneath the leader? A second man? A yes man?
Yeah, a wingman, a second in charge, a right hand man.
We're out here looking for other women, godly women. I don't know.
First of all, God's like, we out here looking for women. Oh crap! I gotta create that first. Hold on a second.
What's a woman? I don't know. Okay, so God was like, "Hey, I'm tired of being God by myself. Let me hang out with someone." And so he created Adam. And so he got some dirt and some dust.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
All right. Okay. I see where that's going. And he formed Adam and he breathed into him the breath of life. And Adam was born a fully grown man. And God was like, welcome to Earth, dude.
God is such a bro in this story. I'll just tell you that.
That's why I keep saying he, and I apologize. I don't mean to gender God, but God is pretty much a bro.
In this story, I feel like God sounds really like a bro.
He's very
okay?
bro-ish in this story. So he's like, welcome to Earth, dude. Look at everything I've made. And so God had given Adam like dominion over the earth, right? Yeah. The plants, the flowers, the trees, the animals. Like he was responsible for naming all the animals, which I don't know how many animals were in the Garden of Eden. Like, is it all the animals that we currently have, or was it just like a starter kit?
The starter kit.
I mean, because there's a lot of animals.
He didn't start with platypus, I guess is what we're saying, right? Like he had to get to that. Yeah,
you gotta get to like you start with bear, sheep, cat,
duck.
I get that.
Like yeah.
When do you end up on rhinoceros? Like what point?
Can you imagine how hard that would be to name all the animals? Like, you just see an animal, and you're like, oh, like, well, how would you even? Like, I'd be like, Wazupalol. Like that could have been
like
what a bear was called.
Making it up right now.
Yeah.
Like you make a noise, meow. Cat? I don't know.
I mean, you gotta hand it to Adam that everything wasn't just named like cat, rat, sat, clat, flat, jat. Like he got creative at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think, and I can't remember if God also put Adam in charge of naming like the plants and the trees. I don't think he was in charge of that because again, like that's a lot of words.
That is. It's a lot of responsibility.
But so this goes on. Obviously, I don't know how long, but then God noticed that Adam was a little lonely because it seemed as if like all the animals had mates and partners, and Adam was just chilling and kind of waiting for God to come play video games with him every once in a while or whatever they did back then. And so God decided he was going to create a partner for Adam. And so one day God put Adam to sleep. He's like, go to sleep.
He gave him a little sleeper hold. He's like, there you go.
Go to sleep. Go to sleep.
God's really sounding like a frat bro now.
Listen,
so
that's what we said.
Ingrained in it. Yeah. He's really living up.
God brought Adam a red Solo cup. They were at a kegger. And while Adam was asleep, God took one of his ribs. And have you heard this part? Okay, so the story is that woman comes from man's rib, and maybe we'll get into this later, but the idea that women's ribs are a little bit, no, is it lower? Which one is it? Women maybe have an extra rib
They have
than
more
men?
ribs? I don't know. I never knew if that was true or not. Like, if
Okay.
that's actually a thing, because I've heard this before, and I was like, that's why? Y'all think that's why?
Yeah.
Not because we create humans and need like a more sturdy body. Okay, cool. We came from you. Good, good, good.
Well, that too. So, okay, anyways, the idea is that God took a rib from Adam and he created Eve, his partner.
Who's that girl?
It's me, Eve. Wait a minute, were you doing the Kimmy Schmidt
What? No.
intro? What were you doing? Oh,
Eve's that
you're actually
girl.
doing Eve because
Eve.
you're way more in tune with the culture than I am. You're like Eve. I'm like Kimmy Schmidt.
Just for the record, for everybody, Jonathan was in a basement cult until last week, so it's fine that he doesn't know all the references.
God, I wish I was. You know how much fun that would be?
Just missing out on all the craziness that's been happening in the world.
So he created Eve, and Adam and Eve were fantastic. They loved each other, I suppose. I don't know. I don't think the Bible ever told us if they had true feelings for each other.
Bible doesn't care. Bible's like, I put them together.
It was like, just two of you. Figure it out. All these other animals are enjoying themselves. You two, have fun. But also, the Bible says that God had created the serpent, and I think I may be saying this incorrectly, but the idea was that the serpent was the most cunning of all the creatures. And I think some people believe that the serpent was meant to represent the devil. But I don't think the Bible really says that. I think it just says like the serpent was a cunning creature. And also in the garden, there was the tree of life and the tree of knowledge and good and evil.
Wait, they're all one tree, or it's different trees?
That's a great question, because I think there might have been two trees, but maybe I remember it as one. But I'm going to say, for the sake of our story today, there's two trees.
Okay.
There's a tree of life, and then there's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the rule that God had told Adam and Eve was like, you can enjoy anything, because there's other trees, apple trees, pear trees, whatever.
Like a steak tree in the back.
There's a money tree in the back. God was like, yeah, you need some money? Look at the money tree. They're like, what's money? He's like, I don't know, you named it. This is such a silly thing we're doing. So anyways, so they were allowed to eat and enjoy anything in the garden except for the tree of good and evil.
Okay.
And enter the snake. The snake showed up, went up to Eve, and was like, hey, girl.
Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, girl. Essentially, he was like, hey, God wasn't really serious about not eating from this knowledge. He was like, you eat from this tree, you're like God. Like, do it. And I think he tempted her a few times, and Eve was probably like, no, thank you. But eventually he wore her down. Eventually Eve ate from the tree. Felt really guilty about it. So one day she was like, Adam,
I got something to tell ya.
And so she convinced Adam to also eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. And in that moment, like, they both realized they were like naked.
That was the first time. They'd been naked before, but they just realized it.
They just realized it, like, oh my God. And I think like this knowledge, like the idea of this story at this point is like the moment of innocence lost.
Yeah.
And so feeling that shame of their nudity, they went and hid, because every once in a while God would come down from wherever he was at, Cancun, who knows, and just like kind of be like, hey guys, and he would like walk in the garden and they would talk to God. Well, God showed up and he's walking around. He's like, hey, where is everybody? And they were hiding, and then he eventually was like, why are y'all hiding? And Adam was like, we were ashamed because we didn't want you to see us like this.
And then God knew.
And God knew, like, and I think like we've seen art where it's depicted with Adam and Eve, kind of like with like fig leaves and stuff like that.
That's post eating from the tree.
That was
then,
post
they're
eating
like,
the fruit. Yeah, they got to cover our bits. And God was like, well, who told you you were naked? And Adam was like, well, this woman you gave me, she convinced me to eat from the fruit. And then
I'm just selling her out so quickly.
He didn't waste any time. Then Eve was like, well, this snake over here, he convinced me to do it. And so the story as it kind of goes is that from that moment, God was so angry with them disobeying him that he cursed the snake. He told the snake, it's going to be your job to roam the earth on your belly.
Oh, so before the snake had little legs, he's like, "Chick, chick, 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 chick."
That's a great question. Because could you imagine if, like, we had human-sized snakes just walking around?
That'd be terrible. Also, can I tell you, this is so weird. My oldest kid the other day told me, you know, Mama, snakes used to have legs. And I was like, okay, maybe he knew something I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they were telling him the story of creation.
At school. And I'm like, stop filling his head.
Yeah, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. Yeah, so maybe the snake, and also I do think about this sometimes too, that like the snake evidently was speaking. Did all the animals speak?
I mean, I imagine if one of them's speaking, they're all speaking. That's why, because I think like if you are just two people in just animals and all you have to do is talk to each other, it must have been much more calming if they had other people they could talk to. You know what I mean? It's like if you could only speak with one person for your whole life, even if you did love that person, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot on one person.
So every once in a while, Adam could go off and talk to his animal friends, and Eve could go off and talk to her animal friends.
Yeah.
Boys' night!
Just him and a bunch of monkeys.
Yeah. So God cursed the snake to stay on his belly for the rest of his life. And then he's cursed Eve. He said, your curse is that you have to go through the pain of childbirth. And Adam's curse was you now have to work the soil and sweat and provide for your family. Kicked them all out of the garden, posted up like one of his angel bros to like guard the entrance of the garden.
Yeah, it was over.
I think it's like the angel had like a sword, like a flaming sword. I like to say the angel had a lightsaber, but it's like the one kid like growing up who would always play by himself. They're like, oh, just put Elroy. Just put him in front of the garden. He's happy as long as he's got his lightsaber. That was so long ago. Is he still guarding it?
Well, they don't want any of us to get in there, so yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, and also like before he did that, he made them. God evidently is really good with like a sewing kit. He made them like clothes,
so they could go and not be. The best part is at this point, no other people have been made, right? So like, what does it matter? They're just going to another place. They could still be naked. It's just the two of them. They've seen each other, but sure, I guess.
In theory, you're right. And that's the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, as I remember it.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's a good story. I knew, obviously, a bit of the Adam and Eve story because I feel like it's referenced. This is the thing about the Bible. It's referenced in so much literature and culture and everything in North America that you kind of have to know something, right? And so I know that story of Adam and Eve. I still want to know. People always talk about how the rib thing. I want to know. I feel like I'm going to look that up while we're talking because I need to know if that's actually a thing and what that's all about. But what I get from this story is it kind of feels like God was like really setting them up to fail. Okay. Because if you put anybody, this is the thing, like even with kids, you put kids and you're like, okay, you've seen all those videos where they're like, here's a gummy bear.
Right.
Now don't touch the gummy bear. Mama's going to be right back. And then they leave and videotape, which I think also is, why are they doing this to their kids? This is horrible. But like the kid like really, and there might even be a whole, like a bowl of something else over there that the kid wants even more. But just because someone says you can't have this one, then all of a sudden you really want it. So I feel like God was kind of like doing them dirty by doing this because it's like you can't tell people not to do one thing because that's all they're going to want to do. Mm-hmm. But it also sounds like they needed to do that in order to create the world in the Bible stories. So maybe God had this plan where he was like, maybe he's like him and his angel friends being like, I can't believe they've resisted for so long. This is amazing. We need them to get to that. Like send in a serpent, put a serpent in to tease them a little bit and get them, tempt them a little bit. Because it sounds like from all accounts, this is the only way that people were made.
I totally agree with you. Like the Bible is completely full of stories that essentially talk about God testing man. Like that seems to be God's thing. It's just sort of like God's like a mean girl. He's like always testing you about your friendship instead of just trusting you. But I think this maybe speaks to, I'll just read it. It says, a common theological question about the Eden story is why would God place the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden if he knew that Adam and Eve would eventually eat from it? Some theological interpretations argue that this scenario was necessary for human free will to exist, without the option to choose disobedience. There could be no real choice to obey, and therefore no meaningful relationship with God.
I mean, I feel like I also have not read East of Eden, but that's my husband's favorite book. And I feel like this is like the theme of it is, free will and choice, and the idea of like thou must versus thou mayest, Tim Schall, right? So it's like this is the opportunity for humans to have free will because that would be, imagine a life where you didn't have any free will. You just were born and then you were like, well, this is how it works. God has planned this all for you. And now, like, that would be boring. And now we get to like have a little shimmy, shimmy, shake in life is how I like to call it. A little shimmy, shimmy, a little shimmy, shimmy, shake.
I do think, though, it would be kind of cool if there was ever a reason for a time machine to be able to go back to the moment where maybe Eve was about to be like, no, don't do that. Everything here is cool. Like, hanging out, your stuff is out, the wind is blowing, you don't even care, man. Like, free love, man.
But can I give you this? None of us would be here in this story, in this line of thinking, had they not.
Yes, but I have a time machine.
So if you do that, you're undoing all of us, Jonathan, just so you know. You tell them not to do it. All of a sudden, no, we're all gone. You come back and we're gone.
Okay, that's I see your interpretation of like messing with time. You're saying if I mess with time like that, people in the future will begin to disappear.
They would all disappear at the same time because you would have taken away this opportunity for Eve to have given birth to anybody.
In my version of the multiverse, we still exist, but we also get to take my time machine shuttle to Eve every once in a while and just hang out.
Just be like blissful.
Unbuttoning their clothes when they're on the shuttle. They're like, can't wait. It's like Westworld. Can't wait to get naked.
Just as an aside, I did look up, and women and men have the exact same amount of ribs.
Ooh.
But one of the things it says on here is that people think Adam passed on the genetic information for a full set of ribs to his offspring. So Adam would have been the only one with with one less rib, which I don't know about that.
I don't know if that tracks. Like, well, Daddy, what happened to your rib? Well, your mama.
Crazy story. And the kids are like, Daddy's drunk again. He's talking about the man in the sky stealing his bones.
He's talking about his friend he'd come hang out with, and he told me not to eat the fruit. I ate the fruit. Shouldn't have eaten the fruit.
Can you imagine how crazy a story that would be? So my friend told me not to eat fruit. I ate the fruit, and then he put me to sleep, and then he took my rib, and then a lady wrapped. You're like, what the heck? What is happening? Dad needs to be like committed.
Used to walk uphill both ways to the tree.
Life was so hard. I had to name every animal. You understand how hard that is?
Also, if God kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden, it doesn't, that I remember, say anything about him saying that to the animals as well.
The animals just followed?
The animals were kind of like, man, this is some bull crap. We didn't do nothing.
Do you think there's like a few animals in the Garden of Eden that didn't follow, and they're like the majestic, like the most beautiful,
like the
unicorns and
biggest
like
eye.
dragons and things that are just so beautiful, and they're like, we not leaving because we didn't do it.
I think what happened though was that all the animals, like in my mind, like there's like this portal, right? And if you could fit through the portal, you had to leave. But then the dragon was like, oh, let me leave, and then he got stuck.
Just half a dragon, like, come on.
Yeah, and so all the other magical animals are like, well, I can't get past the dragon. And then
what is the animal that, so the portal, the dragon got half through, okay? Stay with me on this scenario. The dragon goes partway through the portal, right?
Yes.
Gets stuck.
Yeah.
There's majestic creatures behind it. There's just crappy earth creatures on the other side. But this portal is there. They can't push the dragon through. The portal closes. So the half dragon gets into Earth. What is that animal of today? The half dragon.
the half dragon, maybe like a kimono dragon.
Okay, Komodo dragon.
It's in the name. It's in the name.
It is. Yeah. I was gonna say like an angler fish, those ones that are at the bottom of the ocean with like the
light, and they're like the one that tried to eat Nemo.
That are so scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because it got uglified when it came to Earth. In the other land, it's beautiful.
I did that. It immediately turned into anglerfish, and it's just like flopping on the ground. It's like, get me the water.
I guess I'm a fish now.
Yeah. Like, I like this. Ooh. What else? And is there anything else from the story that sort of jumped out at you as like, I don't know?
Well, I mean, Not that like I mean there's a lot about the story that jumps out at me as I don't know. Okay.
Sure, of course.
Just
Yeah,
talk
yeah, yeah.
about that. Because also dinosaurs. You know what I mean? Like dinosaurs don't fit into this anywhere. But maybe that's where
Maybe that's
dragons
what happened to
were.
them. They're still in the Garden of Eden.
They were walking around. T-Rexes are like having a good old time. Raptors, feathered raptors. The thing that I was interested to know, because when I know the story of Adam and Eve, I always thought of it as there was a tree with an apple, and they ate an apple, right? And so it was always this apple thing. And I feel like apples in that story seem like this horrible thing. You shouldn't eat the apple. Don't eat this, whatever. But it's the most common fruit that we give to people, to kids. It's easy.
Right.
So I always think about that. Like we're giving our kids this apple, this very symbolic thing of like good and evil and like temptation. But we're like, now it's just an easy snack. Just give it to them.
Let's have some peanut butter with it.
Yeah.
So I did look that up as well, and the
Yeah.
Bible never specifies that the fruit in the Garden of Eden was an apple. So as man started to like just reimagine like art and literature, an apple probably was a common fruit, perhaps for the people who were painting pictures and retelling these stories. So this says that the fruit could have been a pomegranate.
Pomegranate. Which would have been a tough one for them to just like, because it's hard to eat a pomegranate. Like they really wanted to eat, like, deceive.
You really wanted that knowledge. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's interesting that we come to learn about this tree fruit as an apple, but
Yeah.
apples are one of the most common fruits, at least here in North America. I can't speak for other countries.
Yeah. Banana might be the most common one elsewhere.
Oh, you would hate that. If you were Eve
Disgusting.
and God was like, don't eat these bananas, you'd be like,
No problem.
I'm good.
I'm good. You can't even make me. I would say no to God if
Yeah.
he said eat a banana. I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna.
Like, but potassium is good for your bones.
The smell, the feel.
God is very, very concerned about our bones.
I know. He's like, I made those bones.
I took a bone from him and gave it to you. The banana. Please, they're all going bad.
They're just falling off these trees. You're like, oh, the whole place stinks. Get out of here.
Will you eat banana bread?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you make it, I
okay.
can't make banana bread.
Right.
Because I would have to then touch and smell bananas.
Yeah.
And part of the this is so off topic, but now people need to know that Aisha detests bananas. The smell, the taste, the touch. I actually don't know what they taste like anymore. But also the sound of people eating bananas makes me want to like chop them in the throat. This is so disgusting.
That's very graphic. I think this is a good time for us to have a praise break.
Hey! Woo! I have no clue if you're telling me to stop because I don't have my headphones in.
We'll stop the praise. I love. I still want to take you to Black Church. That praise break was intense. You started all the way up here. We have 8 more episodes that we gotta get. I don't know how you're gonna top that one.
Get ready. Get ready.
Okay, well, one of the things I know that we said we wanted to do is see if was there a lesson? Is there anything we learned from the story of Adam and Eve?
Okay. I have some thoughts. Let me just catch my breath.
Help.
I praised hard there, okay?
You want me to go first and tell you the lesson
You go
I
first,
think
so
I
I can
learned?
catch my-
Okay, I hadn't really thought about it before this moment. I think the lesson, I don't know if this is a real lesson, but maybe God is a bro.
I think so, from this story.
There's something that is sort of interesting about the idea that God would tempt us to do something that he wouldn't want us to do, but yet he's God. Like there is something, and people do that. Like sometimes people will like test their friends and test their friendships, only to be upset when their friends like come short of a thing that they did, and that just doesn't seem to be the right way to be
Yeah.
someone's
That
friend.
happens in relationships too, where you're like expectation and then it's not met and you're thoroughly disappointed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, like, again, we're having fun with the subject, but that doesn't necessarily seem like a godly or a moral thing to do to people at all. And so, that is something like reflecting on the story. If I could change it, God would have never tempted his friends. He would just been like, yo, eat this fruit, know everything that I know, we good.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I think also I have sort of two takeaways.
Okay.
One is that from what I know of different stories from the Bible, it sounds like, and we've talked about this, that, God shows up in lots of different ways. And I think you're right that in this one, God is like kind of like a bro dude, like a frat boy. You know what I mean? Kind of like, I need a buddy, I need a whatever. But if my understanding of God, I mean, obviously I'm not religious, but my understanding of like spirit and God is that it's like ever changing. It's in the trees, it's in little kids, it's in the wind. So it totally makes sense that God might show up as a man, a dude bro, might show up as a woman, might show up as someone with lots of vengeance or someone with lots of compassion, might show up as something that is non-gendered. It might show up in lots of different ways. So that's my first takeaway.
Okay.
Is that my understanding of how people see God is very much like this. Like it's very ever changing. It's not some sort of singularly benevolent creature or being. Mm-hmm. The other one is, and I think it's going to be a little different for like modern day, my actual takeaway from this story is that, I think that the creation of humans in this story, because I have a very different understanding of how humans were created. But in this story, if we're going with this one, we were created imperfect. And that's part of the fabric of what humans are. And so to expect ourselves to be perfect is not going to happen. It's flawed in that way. So when we act imperfect, that's actually us being the most human that we can be. Right. And so when Adam and Eve were tempted and they acted imperfectly and ate from the fruit from the knowledge tree, they created, which maybe felt like, oh no, this is bad. They created a situation where then they populated Earth, which is actually pretty brilliant, right? If that's how we're here, if through this story. So I think that the moral for me and the message takeaway is we're imperfect. So do what you're going to do and then find a way to like see the good in the consequences. That's my takeaway.
No, I think that's great. That's beautiful. Yeah, because just sort of adding to what you just said, if it wasn't for this sin, quotation marks, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't exist on this earth.
Yeah.
And I think that's a life lesson just in terms of like, kind of like, we're both entertainers, performers, creators, all the above. And so many times I think we can get stuck in this idea of like something has to be done perfect the first time.
Yes.
And it needs to be, especially if you're performing in front of people or whatnot, like I want people to see this in its most perfect form. But sometimes the beauty of art, if you will, is the maturation of it, the growth, the ups and downs. You can't have a good story without an arc. You need the hero to fail so he can also succeed. So, just sort of adding to what you said, but twisting it a little bit. Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Well, and just the other day, my kid who's 5, who has this sense that, he always has to be like in school. He loves learning, but he gets really frustrated when he doesn't get it right the first time.
Right.
So we're practicing words and reading and things. And then he has this like tantrum because he's like, I didn't get it perfect. I didn't get every word, and flips out. And I'm like trying so desperately hard to impart this idea to him that imperfection is the thing. Like that's the jam, because that's where you learn the most, when you make mistakes, when you fail, when you don't succeed. And that's how we get into it, because there's nothing worse than, and I think I had this because my parents were very hard on me to be like perfect all the time. I had this fear of trying new things sometimes because I don't want to be bad. And so I want to like make sure that when I'm raising my kids, it's that I'm like, it's okay. You just have to try your best and then learn, because Adam and Eve would not have ever learned anything if they just, kind of, it sounds like, oh yeah, it could have been like ideal or whatever, but it would have been boring. There would have been no passion. There would have been no excitement. There would have been no learning in that environment, if you think about it, right? In one perspective. So I think that that's like a good takeaway is, we are imperfect, and there's like beauty and joy in being imperfect, and it helps us try new things and be bad so that we can learn how to be good. Ooh, that sounded sexy.
I know. I'm just sort of like, After they got kicked out, they had to learn real quick, because they had to put some babies here on the earth. So, I always wondered if they were having sex in the garden, but maybe she just wasn't getting pregnant. Were they
Wait,
able
because
to
she couldn't have gotten pregnant. What are we? They must have been. They saw animals. The animals would have been having
Yeah,
sex.
the animals were going after it.
Yeah, so they would have been like, what? What does the song do it like they do on the Discovery
Yeah.
Channel?
Yeah. They're like, look at that, look at that elephant on top of the other elephant. Hey, Eve, you want to try something?
I got an idea.
Got some ideas. She's like, hold on, I'm tired. I go get some fruit and get my energy back.
I love it. Okay, well, that's amazing. I think that is a beautiful portrayal of Adam and Eve. That's our show. We want to thank everybody for listening and having a biblical giggle with us. Let's Get Biblical is available on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you might listen to podcasts. So if you liked it, please spread the good word like Jesus would have wanted. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your dad. Tell your cousins. Tell the people you don't like. Tell everybody. And then rate and subscribe so that we know that you are here and you're with us.
Yeah, and after you're done reaching out to all of your enemies, follow us on IG at Let's Get Biblical Pod and comment so we know who you are. Do you have a favorite Bible story? Tell us about it. Maybe we'll feature it on a show.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. See you next time. May peace be with you.
No, with you.
No, peace be with you.
Aisha, peace with you.
I said peace be with. I'm the voice of God now. Peace be with you.
I'm God's crony, all right? Hey, peace be with you, bro.
Yeah, bro.